What if I told you that it's possible to be an ethical investor and make millions and millions with Wall Street without getting any blood on your hands? What if I told you you can't? The truth is, it all depends upon which perspective you take. But today we are going to talk about ESG investing. Welcome to the Sunday Playbook, also known as the Sunday Finance Church, brought to you by the Black Wealth Rebels. My name is Jimmy. I have my brothers Kamari and Corey alongside as we talk about ESG investing today. Gentlemen, how are you?
Just peachy.
That, Kamari, is what you call a hook.
On super chill mood.
Okay.
Okay. I give you props.
You know what I mean? Like, you know.
Hercules.
And he's still top five. All right, y'all. Listen, man, we're going to talk about ESG investing today. Let me share this out into a couple of different places now that we are streaming live. As you come in, please let us know who's here. Let us know, who you're chiming in from. Let us know how you're feeling, what's going on this early Sunday morning. And shout out to everybody who is joining us this Sunday morning. Because, some folks be outside on Sunday. You know what I mean? But it is Sunday. So, but gentlemen, how was your weekend thus far? We still got one day left. How was your weekend thus far? What y'all do yesterday?
Man, I was supposed to go to a birthday party that got squashed because I had to go to my cousin's cookout, it's always good to be with family.
Yeah.
But it's my mom stays with me now, so I got to make sure she's active and doing stuff. So it's interesting. It's interesting.
You've become the parent, huh?
We can't say that publicly. I might get beat.
I love how you said cookout, because if you just said barbecue, I would have shut my laptop down.
Why? I didn't say picnic. Right? Barbecue, cookout, same
No,
thing.
it's a cookout. We in the culture, it's a cookout.
We in the culture say barbecue too. We queuing. I'm a couple years older than you, I think. Are you an ex? Are you a millennial, Jimmy?
I'm on the borderline. It depends upon which joint you look at, because I'm in the very late 70s. I mean, you're not that much older than me, but I've seen some some of those charts depending upon which one you look at.
Yeah, they change. They change all the time.
Right? So, it all depends upon which one you look at.
But no, I know this isn't related to the topic, y'all. Bear with us. But there is a different mindset, not vastly different, because I do believe all three of us our value set is very much the same.
Yes.
And I do believe that is a product of the times we were born in. But I do think there's a slight shift of what we went to. Plus, I didn't go to high school like y'all did. Excuse me, I went to high school.
Yeah,
I went to high school. Y'all didn't go to high school. We
went to Central.
So,
but here's what
I'm not as smart as y'all.
But here's what I will tell you. Don't say that too, man. You're a genius. Here's what I will tell you. What I will tell you is this. This is relevant to today's conversation, by the way, because when you talk about which generation you're born in, whether you're born in the silent generation, the boomer generation, whether you're born in, X, Y, alpha, and all the other ones they talk about, millennial, whatever y'all want to call them, it does have an impact on how you see investing. And I mean, that's clear. It's played out in the data in terms of how you see investing. What I fear for is this current generation, the younger generation now, because we do a lot of work in the communities with the youth, and what I see as going to be problematic moving forward is the way they see investing really isn't investing. They see it as another form of gambling, right? And I understand why when you look at every other commercial is a commercial for somebody gambling. When you go into the corner store and you can gamble, right? So they look at everything as a gamble, and their idea of investing is a little bit different. Now, if I talk to some of my folks who are boomers, it's a whole different conversation.
No, but a lot of them see it as big gambling too.
Well, they do. But what I would say is there's still a level of understanding about the idea of investing. Now, some of them look at the stock market as gambling.
They got more money in it. That's all it is.
They believe a lot of the boomers that I speak to, they only believe in tangible things like real estate or buying gold or something like that, because they have a fear of systems, which is warranted, by the way. I do want to put that out there. But when you talk to this younger generation, they're more likely to put their money with DraftKings than they would to put their money with Schwab or Fidelity.
Listen, I think DraftKings is about to kill the next generation of black youth.
Listen, I had a
It's
young
crazy.
boy. One of the young boys I was talking to when we was doing the joint at PHA told me that we going to talk about sports investing. And what the hell is sports investing? He's
I
like,
got a I got a homie.
FanDuel.
I got a real
Call it sports investing.
I got a homie.
As Corey puts his parlay in. But go ahead, though. Go ahead.
I got a homie whose son, I seen come up, me and my homie real tight. He has a whole business around sports betting.
Mm-hmm.
And with the NFL about to come out, we in preseason, about to go into regular season now, he's about to make some major money.
So for those who don't know, I used to actually put out plays, right? And I stopped because I felt the crazy part is it wasn't even on losses, this is on wins. When I had people in the comments like, yo, I cracked the parlay on what you gave me last night. I had a literal feeling like a drug dealer. I was like, this ain't a good feeling. It's not the same feeling. Like I told you, I just had a gentleman come to me and told me I changed his life with Bitcoin and the S&P 500. That feeling was a lot different than when someone told me like, yo, I hit on a parlay you gave me. It's like I had to stop. Just a complete cold turkey core because I felt like I was selling smack to my people.
So you didn't stop because Bush shut you down?
Well, that's a whole different story. That's when I had my casino. That's not when I was, that's you know what I mean? So that's something different, man.
I've been getting money since '88.
Hey, listen, man. I'm still spending money from '98, not '88, but but I digress. I told you, I keep telling you, one of the things that I guess my most positive trait in the finance space is I have the ability to stack a piece of everything I get, and when I put something in my stack, I never go back for it. It's almost like it doesn't exist. That's like my most positive trait. Anyway, I got some negative ones too. We could do a whole show about our positive and negative traits as it pertains to investing.
Now we also should do a show on sports betting as well. But good morning, Jerome. Jay Sims. Jay Sims says Antonio Moore of Tone Talks has been railing against sports gambling for a while.
Shout out to Antonio Moore, the attorney. As he should.
It's a problem. It's going to be a major problem.
Yeah, it is. It is. Like it's very problematic. And to something that Corey told me a couple of weeks ago, he was like, when we were at the event for BMF, Bible. Make sure I'm clearing this. The church, Bible Ministries Fellowship. And what Corey said, somehow, Corey always says when he have these lines, he said they stick with me, and he randomly throw them out, Paul. But he said, stuff is different when you get out in the public and see how people are living and what they're dealing with versus the internet, right?
That's a fact.
It was just a bar. It was a bar in the middle of the conversation. But I say that to say this about what Jay Sim said. It's cool on the internet, but when you see people like the kids in public on the bus stop going to school, and they on DraftKings, it hits a little different when you see that the youth. And I got like nephew who like, yo, what's the play for that? I'm like, what's the play? What are you talking about? I've been talking to you about investing since you were 6 months old. You don't care, but the sports betting, you all for that. Like, what I mean? So it's very problematic. And I believe it's the next wave that's going to affect our community, like the crack did. And that sounds crazy. That sounds very hyperbolic. But if you look at social media, sports betting, and crack cocaine, it's very collinear. Corey, what you ready to say, bro?
Yeah, it's real out here, man. Like when you get out in the streets and you really see people struggling and you see people succeeding, like it just look different, it feel different. Like I don't know, I'm from an era where I really was on the streets, like I was off my porch. So seeing people like, and then coming into this internet era, it still feels different, man. Like it just feels so different.
Yeah, because a lot of times, like when you a lot of times when you're on the internet, you're looking at people's highlight reel, and also people lie. But then when you get outside and you see like how they're struggling to make ends meet, people like need help with getting food and all that kind of stuff. It's like I don't see this on my timeline, right? And some of the people on my timeline who you would feel are living their best lives, when you see them in real life, it's like a whole different story, right? So it's like they always tell you gotta go touch grass. But it's a reason behind that, man. And we're going to talk about investing in a second, show. I know we went off on a wild tangent, but it's not really. All of these things are kind of correlated, because when we talk about the ways that different generations move in the world, the way they move with investing is completely separate, and ESG is a part of that. So Jay Sim says no, and Antonio agrees with you 1,000%. Okay, listen, I like Antonio Moore's content. He's dope. And I like his series. We talked about what's he called it? The Decadent Veil. I think that's pretty prolific. So Core, he has Antonio Moore is an attorney who does a lot of content, and one of the things he talks about is the idea of a decadent veil and how society will take like these small number of successful black folks, the celebrities, the Oprahs, the Jay Z's, and they put them in front of us. But it's really a decadent veil. They put them in front of us to make us believe that we, as a people, are doing much better than we are. Right? It kind of goes to what you're saying about being outside. And he talks about like they consistently put these people in front of us and say, well, if Oprah could do it, you can do it. And look how many people are doing well. Look at Robert Johnson. Look at this person, while ignoring what the data says about our community overall. So that's his theory, that his decadent veil, and his work in that I think is very prolific, and I agree with 1,000%. So shout out to him. I haven't seen I've seen him like slander it, but I haven't seen a lot of him go into the sports betting. I gotta look that up, but sports betting will be a problem as we move forward with the next generation. With that being said, Kamari, we'll be right back, but let's get into what we're here to talk about today. Before I pull up the presentation, anybody watching this in the chat, we have a number of folks that are watching live across various platforms. Some people in the village, some people are on YouTube, and some people are on Facebook. But I want to know, do you guys believe in ESG investing, and have you done any ESG investing? And also, another thing I want to say is this. If you're not a member of the village, please join the village by going to blackwealthrebels.com. That is our community where we stay in touch with all of our folks. Let's go to blackwealthrebels.com. And before we get started, I'd like to say that this episode and all of our content is brought to you by Supplement. Supplement is a black-owned company that makes, great bottles, right? They make the best bottles that there are, right? Twist the top off and all that. So go to getsupplement.com and support our sponsor. This is a black-owned company, and their product is phenomenal. So we want to thank them for their support of the Black Wealth Rebels. Now, with that being said, let's get the computers shooting. Let's talk about ESG. Kamari, I'm going to need you to watch the comments in the chat because,
as always.
And before we get started, Jarrell says, "Never heard of ESG investing." Well, I'm glad you're here, beloved, because we about to talk about this. Let's talk about this shit. This is a Ghostface would say. Shout out to Ghostface too. The album is fire. But anyway. All right, so ESG investing, right? And we talked on Friday. And by the way, if you're not in the village, join the village. And this PowerPoint will be cut to the side and made for our members. But on Friday, we had a conversation about the idea of Black billionaires and what that would mean to our community. One of the things that came up is the idea that investing itself kind of puts blood on your hands based upon the things that you invested, even if you were to invest in something as simple as the S&P 500. So ESG investing came up, and ESG investing stands for environmental, social, and governance, right? So this investing has transformed from a niche strategy to a mainstream approach and is reshaping global finance. So we're going to talk about the benefits, the challenges, and the future outlook of ESG investing for financial professionals, as well as people who are just looking to, ethically save and stack more bread, right? So this is ever evolving what the idea of ESG means, which to give you a little bit of the punchline is part of what the problem is. But environmental, social, and governance, right? So for me, this is interesting because as someone who studies real estate for a living, we have a thing in real estate which is known as PEGs, right? PEGS, which are the four influences on value. And the four influences on value are physical, environmental, social, and governance. So this is kind of a segue into what ESG is. But ESG is really environmental, social, and governance. And it's how we define a company that's actually has blood on their hands versus doing something positive for the overall society. So here's the evolution and growth of ESG. ESG has experienced extraordinary growth in recent years. The global ESG assets under management are expected to exceed 50 trillion by the end of this year. So this represents more than a third of the projected total assets under management worldwide. Now, you should pay attention to this. It says a third of assets are going into ESG companies, right? And these are companies that do things from a positive standpoint, environmentally, socially, and with governance. So this surge reflects increasing awareness of sustainability challenges, shifting investor demographics, and growing recognition that environmental and social factors can materially impact financial performance. Some people have the opinion, right, that ESG investing is a positive because if you're doing all of those things, then you're contributing not only to society, but to the business world as well. And they believe that it's a net positive and money should flow into ESG. We'll get into what the problems are shortly. So here's the framework. Here's what it encompasses, right? So we talk about environmental. We're talking about things such as climate change strategies and their carbon footprint. We're talking about energy efficiency and renewable adoption, pollution management and prevention, as well as natural resource conservation and biodiversity, right? So that's what we're talking about in terms of environmental. When we get to the side of social, we're talking about things such as workplace diversity and inclusion practices. And we've seen what's happened with that over the last 6 to 7 months. We also are talking about labor conditions and fair wages. That came up as part of our conversation on Friday about people who are union busting and not paying fair wages, and also have workers who are not in unsafe labor conditions. Social also encompasses community engagement and philanthropy, right? We have a lot of companies that are philanthropic in nature. But we also talked about product safety as well as data security. Those are what are encompassed under the idea of social. Next, we have governance, right? So governance talks about the board composition and independence. What does your C-suite look like as well? What does your board look like? Executive compensation and structure. From a compensation standpoint, do people of different races and different genders make similar money, right? So what does that look like? We also talk about shareholder rights and voting policies, which is interesting because a lot of that has been changed over the last decade or so. What rights shareholders actually have based upon which level of stock they own. We could do a whole show on that. The different types of shares that are available to someone to invest in a company. Write that down, Kamari, so I won't forget that. But that is an excellent a topic for us to discuss. Also, business ethics and anti-corruption measures, right? It's funny. I was watching last night. I randomly was watching The Rainmaker, the John Grisham joint with Matt Damon, and you talk about corruption, By the way, Kamar, I see you laughing, but John Grisham got some of the best flicks. You muted, by the way.
Rainmaker is a classic. I was laughing because it's old joint.
I was the reason I watched it is because I was flipping the station. Yeah, I was up last night to like 3-4 in the morning. Because I made one of them old head mistakes, right? Where I was working and I came in the crib at like 6-7 o'clock and I fell asleep for like 2 hours. You know, as an old head, when you fall asleep for 2 hours, you already know that you're gonna be up the rest of the night.
Not me.
That's some old head stuff right there.
Not me. Once I'm down, I'm down. Now I might get up earlier, but not 2 hours.
For my young folks, y'all might not know nothing about that. But taking a nap during the day sometimes could be tragic for an old man.
Yes, it can be.
So I was up watching The Rainmaker because I was flipping the channels and they have a Rainmaker TV show now, right? It's a series now. It's a series on Peacock. So I was like, well, before I watch the series, let me go watch the old movie. So I watched the old movie, then I watched all 3 episodes that dropped in the series. Pretty good, by the way. But I digress. But the point I was making is you talk about corruption with businesses. A lot of times things come out in terms of scandal, and a lot of times things are done right in front of our face. A lot of times these big corporations and governments now play right in our face. So we talk about corruption and things like that. It's not like it used to be. They used to at least have enough respect for us to try to keep it under wraps. Now they play right in your face.
Right in your face.
So,
in the face.
Yeah, in the face. So ESG factors represent non-financial indicators that can significantly impact a company's long-term financial health, risk profile, and competitive positioning. I bring that up because a lot of the Sunday classes that we've been going through in this series, we're talking about things that you can find on their balance sheet, right? Things that you can find in their books, a lot of their financial data. A lot of these indicators are non-financial, but they've been brought into the financial space, and we're tracking to see how these companies operate within this realm of environmental, social, and governance. So keep in mind that these are non-financial indicators, but people are bringing them into the finance space and then making some sort of they're coming to some sort of conclusion based on these non-financial things, although we're talking about financial markets. So here are their approaches. There's something called negative screening. So this excluding companies or sectors with undesirable ESG characteristics. That includes companies such as tobacco companies, weapon companies, fossil fuels. So they're right at the back, they're knocked off. So positive screening, we select companies with superior ESG performance relative to industry peers. Keep in mind what that says. It says superior ESG performance relative to industry peers. What is the problem with that, Kamari?
It depends on which one you're talking about, but there's so many problems with that because it's really hard to become ESG.
But if one of the benchmarks are not necessarily what you're doing, but what you're doing in comparison to your peers, What if you all suck, but you just happen to be the less sucky of all the suckers? Pause. Right? That's how a lot of this is done. When you start to pull back the layer and do reading on ESG, you see some companies that they consider ESG is like they're not necessarily environmental, but in that space, they're more environmentally friendly than all the rest of everybody else. All of them are trash, but you're the least of the trash.
And I mean, so that's a thing in professional investing anyway, right? You will see companies compared to other companies, and they'll say, oh, such and such company is down 20%. This company's only down 15%. So they beat the index by 5%. So they're better. But like you said, they're just less suckier of the two. They both suck.
but I think from a finance standpoint, I get that because you lose less money. But from something like ESG, which is non-financial, I think then it becomes more problematic because we're not even talking about something that's quantified by numbers. We're talking about and I guess you could technically quantify it by numbers, but these are non-financial metrics. I think that's part of the problem. So the other, go ahead.
Well, you got this whole negative ESG thing, and that's how they quantify it. But like you said, and I only brought that up because comparison a lot of times is the devil, in my opinion.
Thief of
a
joy.
lot of other people's opinion. What's that?
It's also the thief of joy.
Yes, it is. So, like you said, are you really doing good, or are you just doing less pain? Are you just doing less evil? There is a difference there. Yeah. And so that's why words are so powerful.
Yes, they are. But I'm also taking time to go through that because I want people to pay attention to some of the problems with ESG. So incorporating ESG factors alongside traditional financial metrics and analysis is what's considered ESG integration. So you take these non-financial things and you integrate them with your other analysis that is financial, right? And you combine them to have some sort of metric that way. There's also what's known as impact investing. That's an approach in ESG. Where you target investments that generate specific, measurable social environmental benefits alongside financial returns. So you come up with some sort of metric that you're looking for from an ESG standpoint, and you marry those with the financial returns that you're also looking for. So these are the different approaches of ESG. One is if you're trying to put a fund together that's an ESG fund, one is negative screening, one is positive screening, one is integration, and the other one is impact investing. And what I see majority of the time, a lot of times, it's just impact investing because you're looking for companies that still have some sort of return or some financial metrics that will draw you in, but you also want to see that they're looking at environmental and social components. Go ahead, Kamar, I guess in the say.
It's just wild to me, right? When you talk about the management, the largest ESG manager by assets under management is BlackRock. So I just giggle at that every time I see that. That's all. So problematic.
All right. So let's talk about the financial case for ESG. Let's talk about some positives right now, right? So one of the things would be long-term performance potential, right? So multiple studies, and if you look it up, you can find studies, but you can find studies that say anything if you look up studies, right? ESG leaders outperform laggards or overextended time horizons, with one meta-analysis of over 2,000 studies finding a positive correlation between ESG criteria and corporate financial performance in 63% of the cases. And when you read a lot of the academic studies, what they're saying is a lot of times when you have management that thinks about ESG and they're taking deep thoughts about ESG, they're also taking deep thoughts about managing the actual capital. So they think there's a correlation between just them opening up their mind to ESG and also just being good stewards of the capital. So that's what you'll see in some of those academic studies. There's also enhanced risk management, right? So companies with strong ESG practices, and it's kind of what I was just saying, typically demonstrate better operational efficiency, reduce regulatory scrutiny, and lower capital costs, translating to greater resilience during market downturns. So they're just saying that there's a correlation between management that is looking at ESG as well as that same management and how they look at being stewards of the capital, right? So just keep that in mind. The other one is growth opportunities. Companies addressing sustainability challenges are often better positioned to capitalize on emerging markets and innovations in areas like renewable energy, resource efficiency, and sustainable consumer products. This goes to our earlier conversation about the different generations and how they see investing. You talk about a lot of people that are younger. They are more socially conscious, or as they would tell you on the internet, they're quote unquote woke, right? They're woke. How we demonize the idea of being woke is wild to me, but that's a whole other show. But anyway, and because of this, you will see capital flow to companies that address these concerns. So you have people that will do business with companies based upon the fact that these companies put it out there that they're energy efficient, that they care about diversity. You see this with Costco. I know a lot of people go to Costco because they like Costco's approach to how they treat society from a social standpoint. So what tends to happen is they spend their money with it. So there's a positive correlation between coming out, and then on the flip side, right? Depending upon who you talk to, right? You talk about Target and some of the woes of Target, which is actually wild too, by the way. As a quick aside, I saw people celebrating because the CEO of Target stepped down, and they were saying.
But the board's still the chairman of the board.
I was like, so yeah, you stole my punchline, bro.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
That's where I was going with that. I said, Bo's the chairman of the board. He got a nice little parachute in his equity. He got a nice piece of equity, so he's still owner of Target. But anyway,
so he got a promotion. So people don't understand. They think CEO is the it thing because it's out front, but really the board.
I'm sorry,
right, but the board runs the company, and the chairman of the board is the one who does that. The CEO reports to the board.
Mm-hmm.
But people will take a victory any way they can. But
like with Blackwell's Rebels Inc., Kamari's the president, but I'm the chairman of the board, right? Anyway, I digress.
Come on, man.
That's a joke.
You're doing too much.
I'm joking. I think Kamari may be the secretary or something. But anyway, I'm sorry. But anyway.
But Jimmy is the president of By the Hood.
No, I'm nobody. I'm just a talent. Anyway, with that being said, though, just getting back to the conversation. The conversation is when you talk about companies that do the right thing from an environmental, social, governance standpoint, sometimes that can lead to better returns. So from a positive standpoint, some will say that there is a financial case for looking at ESG companies. For those that are watching and everybody in the chat, do you even care about this? Because the flip side, some people are like, look, I invest to make money. I'm not looking for my companies to be, great citizens. I'm looking for them. Milton Friedman said a company's only job is to give a return to their shareholders.
Yep.
Right.
Which
so
is problematic.
I'm just saying, right? But so I would assume that when he looks at ESG, he's like FOH. But for the people watching, do you care? Do you care that the companies you invest in, whether they're good citizens, or are you only looking for a return on your capital? Right, because that's what it really boils down to.
I mean, probably the biggest top performing stock right now is totally ESG compliant, and I think that's getting a lot of traction for ESG going forward. But I think that's also, you gotta cherry pick things. That's just it's the sign of the times. Because, by the way, the company I'm talking about is NVIDIA.
Yes.
NVIDIA is totally ESG. And Jimmy, I hope I'm not jumping too far ahead.
No, you're fine. This is a great conversation. Go ahead.
Right. NVIDIA is ESG compliant. Supposedly their GPUs, the chips they use for their graphics and their AI are like great for recycling energy and using energy in very efficient manners. However, they got lucky in terms of ESG. Because they just were in the right place at the right time. And so I don't know if you really can be truly ESG and make money. And for the record, ESG, when it's done right, they're not supposed to be doing any harm to society and the globe and the planet. However, the way the world is set up, it's really hard to do.
No, it's difficult, but I think the other part about that is, right, we talk about the positive side of it.
Mm-hmm.
There is a correlation between companies that actually put thought into it versus how they manage the other side of their business, right? Now, in data science, we always say that correlation and causation are two different things.
They are.
But I think that there is something to be said for when you have people who are stewards of your capital, if they're looking at these things, that actually makes them better at looking at these other things over here. So there's something to be said for that. But how something is considered to be ESG compliant is kind of wild too, because sometimes it's really just about offsetting, right? Do you think it's possible for an airline to be ESG compliant, considering what an airline does?
Well, supposedly the less emissions they do, the lower the rating they get, which is positive. But no, to answer your question, probably not.
Exactly. And that's part of my point, right? So let's talk about additional ESG benefits, right? And we talked about this. Who's gonna stop me, boo? By the way, shout out to the Real Housewives of Atlanta. They don't get enough credit for the fact of how much they influence culture. Like even the idea of tea came from that show, but I digress.
That was
Anyway,
what you call them, right? What's her name?
her name was Sheree is the one who said, "Who gonna check me? Who gonna check me?"
Oh, it wasn't the other one.
No,
you know what I'm talking about, right? This got all the plastic surgery.
yeah, it wasn't her. It was Sheree. It was she by Sheree. I may or may not. Let me shut up because I'm talking too much right now. I'm talking too much right now. So I'm chill. Kamari got me a head dry snitching on myself, man. But anyway, right? We talked about millennial interest, and the idea of how millennials care about these kind of things. And if you look at it, 86% of millennials actually care about it, right? 86% is what the data says. They're interested in ESG investing. This is according to Morgan Stanley. They have a study done from the Institute of Sustainable Investing. And Kamar, you're speaking about mini leaks, by the way.
Mini leaks, yeah, I just looked it up. Yeah.
I'm gonna say I didn't want you to have time to look for that, but I also didn't want to answer your question because again I'm snitching on myself. But anyway, so 86% of millennials care about ESG. So if we talk about money moving forward and where we're going overall, it might be something that you want to pay attention to. What up, Shelby? What up, Ant? How are you? So now there's 30 trillion wealth transfers going to happen. There's an estimated intergenerational wealth transfer from millennials and Gen Z over the next decade, which people believe will drive further ESG adoption, right? As the older generations die off and the newer generations get these inheritances and get this capital, there are generations that care about ESG. You can position yourself now so when that money flows into ESG, you're already sitting there, right? So that's another benefit that people, perceive in the idea of ESG investing, right? Institutional growth, 58%. So 58%, that's the percentage of institutional investors expecting to increase ESG investments in the next 2 years, right? This is what the data says. ESG investing enables alignment between financial goals and values while anticipating regulatory trends that increasingly mandate sustainability. So the idea is this. There's two ways to look at this, right? Is ESG BS? Possibly. Does it make good business sense? That's also possible. And when you look at where capital flows, you might want to pay attention to ESG, or at least understand what ESG is, right? That's why I was asking, do people even care? Maybe you should care. So now let's talk about this. Go ahead, Kamar.
Now I was going to say you should care because stock price very much so is correlated to capital flows, because it's not necessarily the value or the profit a company is bringing. It's really how popular a stock is and how much assets are going to that particular stock, which is going to drive the stock price up and or down.
Yeah. So with that being said, though, let's talk about some of the challenges and limitations of ESG. We talked about this throughout this entire episode, the standardization issue. So there's a lack of uniform ESG metrics and methodologies, which can lead to inconsistent ratings across providers with the same company, often receiving dramatically different scores. There is no standardization when it comes to this. It says, so I could become an ethical millionaire from owning NVIDIA.
That's right. And you can become a billionaire too just by holding NVIDIA. And you can do good in the world, brother. Shout out to Ant.
All right, so the second limitation is what was considered greenwashing concerns. So companies and funds may exaggerate or misrepresent their environmental credentials, making it difficult for investors to identify truly sustainable investments. So what I would tell people is when you have an investment in a company, and it's funny because I know a lot of people don't do this, and I know this because I asked the question to a lot of people in the villages. We have conversations about investing. The companies you own, the individual companies, not necessarily ETFs or your funds, but your individual companies, just go to their website and look at some of the things that they claim on their website. What does their website even look like? I remember a couple of years ago, I was asking this question to someone. We were talking about their companies, and they had a equity in Berkshire. I said, "You look at the Berkshire's website?" And they was like, "No, I never even thought to go there." And they went to Berkshire's website. I'm not sure what it looks like now, but this is a couple of years ago. Berkshire's website was probably the most archaic website I've ever known, right? And so the boy was like, "I don't even know if I feel comfortable having my money here." And I was like, "Actually, it's a different way to look at it. They don't even care about the bells and whistles. They out here trying to make capital. They don't care to have the beautiful front-facing store." Because I've been several times in the community where you see a store and the outside looks beautiful, and then you walk in and the food is trash. Anyway, but that's just an example. But the point is, go to some of these companies' web. Look at it. Oh, they still got the website. Yeah, they still got a 1996 website. Now, by the way, this is $1 trillion company, and this is their website.
Just goes to show you your website and everything.
This is but look, a lot of our folks, the first thing we want to do is we want to get the super powered website. We ain't got no business. They got $1 trillion, and this is their website. I'm gonna make some content on this later. Come on, we can make a video on this.
No, we should do a video on this.
Yeah, a lot of y'all out here, y'all want to get a $6,000 business cards. Y'all want
the logo,
double blind trust, 75 LLCs. Meanwhile, Berkshire got $1 trillion company, and this is their front-facing website. But I bring that up because if you look at a lot of companies, you talk from an ESG standpoint, you go in there and they say, we're such and such certified. And then you go look that certification up, and it's something that somebody in their company made up. It's not even a real thing, right? Because there are no standards when it comes to being ESG, and companies exaggerate by saying we're such and such compliant and such compliant. Like, what does that even mean? Now over time, things start to mean something, but if you start to look some of that stuff up, you'll be surprised what you find. It's almost like the idea of a Michelin star restaurant. It's become something over time. But have you ever done the homework on what Michelin star means? You got a tire company out here telling us where to get good food at. But again, I'm digressing.
But that story is so amazing, though. And it makes sense when you get into the story.
Yes, yes, it does. Yes.
But guess what? It was all about selling tires.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Some business stories are great stories. I sent you one the other day. I don't know if you saw it, about the guy who owns the cheese company. Did you see that one?
Yeah, you sent that last night. I never heard of that spot before. You know what? But we need to do a show based on all the quiet money out there moving.
Dog. Quiet
and listen,
money.
Going back to my comment, and Jimmy calls me petty, but my thesis is we could have more Black billionaires by creating quiet companies and then deploying that capital for good. But that's all I'll talk about.
I'm not gonna get into this debate with you today. I'm gonna chill. Corey went up to do some parlay, so I'm gonna chill because I don't want to debate with you about that. I just want more capital in the community spread amongst more people, and I need more 6-figure earners. I'm like the young Jones out there. Just need more 6-figure earners out here, man. Anyway, data quality and availability. So we have incomplete, self-reported, and unaudited ESG data, right? Particularly from smaller or emerging market companies. And that creates analytical challenges. You really can't do your due diligence and verify if some of the claims that they make are actually true, especially when they're coming up with random ratings and things that they're giving themselves. So you have to be careful when you want to do your own analysis. If you're doing an analysis based on ESG, you have other financial metrics that they have to make available, but ESG is nothing that, from the standpoint in terms of just an abundance of data, has to be made available the same way that their income and their debt has to be made. So just be careful when doing your own analysis of ESGs. Those are some of the limitations. To me, the biggest limitation is the standardization issue. There are no complete standards set for how you measure whether a company is ESG compliant or not. So we'll see in the future whether that becomes a thing, because again, the idea of capital flowing to younger generations is one thing, but the other thing about it is when you talk about capital flowing, there's other things that flow to next generation. I was thinking about this yesterday. I was looking at I was laughing at one of your former colleagues, right? Our city council president, right? And yesterday he had like a thing in South Philly where he had like Jaden Styles, right? And we're tied together.
From TV, baby.
I'm gonna tie it together, Kamari, in a second.
I'm waiting.
But I was laughing because I saw him at the Nas concert, and he actually gave Nas a citation. He gave Schoolie D a citation, and I was thinking, I was like, he's literally this is his generation, right? So I was like, I don't know, maybe the older politicians have done the same thing. It just wasn't the artists or the people being celebrated from the time I came up in. So
the Rocky statue.
But hear me out though. But now it looks different, right? And I bring that up because the younger generation, right, the millennials, and like as they they're going to start to become the people who are the financial institutions. They're going to become the investors. They're going to become the hedge fund managers. They're going to become the government officials. And as they take their place in that seat, you might see standardization take place in ESG because this is something that they actually care about, right? So this is how society changes over time because, and again, a lot of the boomers are still holding on for dear life to a lot of power, a lot of capital. But one thing that's undefeated in this world is Father Time. So, eventually they're going to go meet the ancestors and, you'll see everything flow to a younger generation. So, I'm a man of a certain age. I'm just watching this to figure out how to position myself. So Gen Alphas in my family will have a different experience than I had because I want to leave them with something that they can start with. You know what I mean? A head start. So I'm paying attention personally to see how money flows into ESG and to see whether there will be standardization because that could change everything. So that's how I was tying it together, Kamari. Like people of over time, whether that's through politics, whether that's through business, whether that's through the arts, will take their place at the top of the food chain, and whether that's law, education, they're going to take their place there. So pay attention to what they care about. As an investor, that's also a piece of game for y'all too.
Roblox.
yes. Roblox is a very Crocs. Look at Crocs, right?
Yep.
People laugh at Crocs, but go look at Crocs. Go look at Crocs.
I mean, even
financial statements.
What's the pantyhose joint that old boy quotes all the time? Damn, what is his name?
Which one are you talking about?
Damn, I can't think of his name. Oh, Peter Lynch. Peter Lynch talks about how he made a bag off of pantyhose, the little egg-shaped joints back in the day.
Listen, I remember the old heads in my family were like. I remember again at a cookout, and all the older folks in my family were like snapping on the young folks that had Crocs on.
Yep.
Right. And again, I'm somebody I wear Crocs for a whole different reason. I got that. I've been wearing Crocs for years. I got it from a real estate investor I met at a conference, and he had this idea in his head.
I heard they're comfortable.
Oh, they're mad comfortable. But he had this idea in his head. He was like, I'm wearing Crocs, jeans, and a t-shirt because that's part of his branding and part of it makes him feel like I don't give a F about like societal norms. It was a whole psychological thing. But my point is saying that is this. I remember them laughing at that, and I also remember last quarter looking at Crocs. They cracked over $1 billion in one quarter. They cracked over $1 billion in revenue in one quarter from them plastic shoes. They made a bill, right? They made a billy in quarter, by the way. That's not a year. That's a quarter.
But to your point, right? The old heads always mess it up. Blockbuster. That was some other famous Sears, right? Once you get stuck in your ways,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Once you get stuck in your ways, you're a liability. You must always remain nimble. You must always remain fluid. You must always have an open mind and seek more information. And it's funny, Jimmy and I think we have the privilege of seeing that happen. Mm-hmm. But at some point, we're gonna be like, we don't want nothing to do with them old whippersnappers.
Yeah. You gotta embrace the youth and understand that like eventually the capital will be within. It's easy to just throw them off to the side now and say they're crazy and this, that, and the third. We talk, and it's funny because we always come around. We talk about them how they behave on social media, but they are the words of Whitney used to be the children of the future. But it's true though, and that's an investing principle as well, right? And there's a number of companies that we can put into that boat that didn't survive because they didn't, kind of reinvent themselves. It's interesting watching Facebook. Facebook consistently adds and takes away things and does things, but they're trying to protect their space. One of my mentors in business told me years ago, he said, when you get up every morning, you should be trying to put yourself out of business because if you're not, somebody else is. And if you try to put yourself out of business, you'll always evolve and be able to, do what you got to do. Anyway, the politicization of ESG, say that word 3 times, right? Oh, you got something else you want to shoot?
No, I was just backing up what you said.
Oh, okay.
4.1 billion.
4.1 billion.
That's crazy. That's crazy. On some Crocs.
4.1 billion last year. 4.1 billion. And this is what I'm saying, right? So again, Roblox is something else the kids like. One of the reasons that I love doing our camp and having these conversations is because the kids give you valuable data on where they're going to spend their money. And that's whether it's music artists, that's whether it's specific clothing brands, that's food brands, all the things that we, in this economy, the kids will tell you where the money is flowing, right? Years ago, I could have told y'all years ago, before even Amazon purchased them, that Twitch was going to be a thing because all the kids in our camp love Twitch. They didn't care about linear TV. They didn't care about traditional TV.
Facts.
They all watch Twitch and they all watch YouTube, right?
Yeah.
TikTok is their thing. Shout out to Shelby, a TikTok legend. TikTok is their thing, right? So, and I'm saying this, I'm actually talking to myself. I need to spend more time over there because that's where all the money is going to be flowing. But I digress.
I don't know. I still think YouTube's going to beat it, but TikTok is definitely making a case. But Jim, also, I think one of the greatest cases for what you're saying is hip hop. How many of our parents demonize hip hop and said that devil music? I mean, they see that they always said it about all new forms of music, the old heads, right? But hip hop has literally changed the world.
But even in hip hop, right? You talk about the business of hip hop, right? Not the music, but the business of hip hop. Mm-hmm. I was watching an interview Larry Jackson did, the head of like Apple Music, and owns a bunch of stuff. He's a big time music executive, and he did an interview with Joe Budden one-on-one, and he made a comment that had the computers putin piss people off, right? He said that Drake's catalog is more valuable than the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s combined. And then he took a step back. He was like, maybe not the 90s because there's a couple like big records. He said, but from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, Drake's catalog alone is worth more than all the 60s, 70s, and 80s. He said combined.
More than Michael Jackson.
He said combined. And here's why, right? And this is where you got to pay attention. You talk about how businesses change. He said because Drake is the king of streaming. He was like, no one is streaming the Supremes. For those that like the Supremes, they've already bought it. It's in their house. They're listening to it, right? For those that have bought Marvin Gaye, they already have it. It's in their house. They're listening to it. Drake streams so much. His streams are more than like double the person that's number two. Like he streams so much that his catalog consistently prints off money. He prints off money. Do you realize that part of you see that lawsuit? They gave him $100 million and $400 million, and he recouped in like about a year. No one has ever done that because, again, this is talking about how business moves. We're in an era of streaming now, and we're not in the era of physical copies. So because of that, the people that like Michael Jackson aren't streamers per se, right? A lot of old heads they'll go buy another Michael Jackson album. They're buying on iTunes. They're not streaming it consistently. People wake up all day long and just stream dudes music.
Yeah, but I also think, and this is murky.
It wasn't quality. He's talking about.
No, I got it. Because I was going to say impact, right? Because I got what you're saying. He kept it to the lane of streaming, right? And I get that. But what will have the most impact? Will Drake continue to have the same type of impact on music that a Michael Jackson or Prince would have?
Maybe not, but that's not the argument, though. The argument,
I know.
Yeah, but the point of me bringing it up in this ESG conversation is streaming is big. These streamers right now, like in terms of like Twitch and YouTube and all, these streamers are making money hand over fist. They're making athletes. I see them out there on my timeline. They're taking the NBA players, girl, because they're making just as much money as them, right? This is the world we're living in. You have to watch where the youth is putting their money as an investor. And I think that's what I'm really talking about. So
no, that's a fact. That's a fact. And that's always been the case.
Yeah. So ESG is making this screen. I'm sorry, but ESG, right, is ESG is one part of that. But I guess my advice would be for people watching this. And by the way, anything we say here is not investment advice. It's for educational and informational purposes only. Nothing we say here is about what to invest in. We're not your fiduciaries. But the point I'm making is, if you're in the finance space and you're watching the markets, pay attention to where the youth are allocating their resources, because in the future, they'll be the ones in charge. Right? They'll be the parents in the room. So watch where they're going to put their money, right? And streaming is one of those things. So businesses change over time, right? You talked about Blockbuster. Now we're talking about Netflix, right? I remember Barnes and Noble, me thinking that Barnes and Noble will never go out of, they got a foothold. Amazon was like, FOH, get out of here.
And I still love Barnes and Noble.
Listen, man, it's funny. I was in the library last week. I got that book I showed you. I was in the library. I forgot the feeling of being in a space with books all around you. I forgot that because I'm an Audible Kindle boy. I was like, sorry. Anyway, we're getting back to the say this word 3 times tomorrow. The politicization of ESG, right? It's being political now. So ESG investing has become increasingly politicized in the United States. So it creates a complex landscape of financial advisors to navigate. Several states have enacted anti-ESG legislation prohibiting public pension firms from considering it or doing business with firms that boycott certain industries. Now, this is something we're seeing now.
It's trolling you. Trolling you.
Stop clapping at me, Ant. Pause. Stop it, man. Like I told you, man. Listen, things can be evil, but it's also evil to live backwards. Ooh, rewind and find there's more to find. Shout out to Loaded Lux, man. It's evil to live backwards. I'm sorry. This So this presents unique challenges for people that work with clients across the political spectrum, requiring a nuanced approach to discussing sustainable investing strategies. There's been like an anti-ESG movement since our current, president has been in office. There's been like somewhat of an anti-ESG, anti-woke movement, but it doesn't mean like that it's nothing that you should pay attention to because, again, um, the younger generation, this is what they care about. You know what I mean? So now you have people who work in the space, they're like changing the vocabulary, right? Instead of saying ESG, they talk about risk management or long-term value creation in place of it. They're changing the terminology but having the same conversation. So, but like I said, it also could be a positive if you look at something like a Costco as an example. Just Google Costco and ESG, and you'll see all sorts of positive things and how capital flows in because of that. So let me hurry up through the rest of this. Right, there's a case study. If you look at NextEra Energy, they have strong ESG practices, and it's transformed from traditional utility to the world's largest renewable energy producer. So their stock outperformed the S&P by over 500% in the past decade. They've reduced carbon emissions by 56% since 2005. It is named the Fortune's world's most admirable companies list for 14 consecutive years, and they focus on ESG. So Tesla, on the other hand, has mixed ESG signals, right? Tesla illustrates, the complexity of trying to look at a company from an ESG standpoint, because they're the electric vehicle, right? They are with all the lefties, the far left were huge Tesla fans, right? But they were also removed from the S&P 500 ESG index despite their climate impact, because the governance concerns around the board independence and their labor practices, right? So it's not just about having electric vehicles. What about your labor practices? So there are different ESG dimensions, and it shows how there's a conflict of any sort of standardization when you talk about deeming a company ESG. What I find interesting is how much their sales and how much people are not buying Teslas anymore, and a lot of it has to do with their head honcho and his shenanigans. Because that's an interesting case study, because if you look up the people that made Tesla, the people who were Tesla buyers, they were the what we call them in society, the tree huggers. And the tree huggers were also the ones who were anti a lot of his political stances. So it's interesting. He kind of like pooped on his consumer.
What I find interesting though is, I was called a Tesla hater pretty early. I won't say early, but I've taken that stance a long time ago that he's a racist. And I'm just like, why are y'all just not figuring this out? So the tree huggers didn't see that he had racist activities that they were just turning a blind eye to.
Well, I think the tree huggers didn't know about him personally. I talked with so many people who didn't even know who this guy was until the current presidency. Like, people be going to work buying products and they know this is an electric car maker. They don't even know who the CEO is. People couldn't tell you the CEO or the people that run pretty much 99.9%.
Yeah, but there's so many people in the Church of Elon worshiping at Bishop Musk's feet. It's like, y'all didn't know this, but they did not. I mean, what you're saying is right, Jimmy. I'm not even arguing that. It just baffles my mind. It's like,
but he made himself more of a public figure, right? And in doing so, he kind of pooped on his number one consumer. Now, the thing about him is he has so many things going on. Like, I don't feel sorry for him, and nor does it mean, but
he's an Afrikaner, and dog Afrikaner. They are not the same as Africans, but so, just wanted to make that point.
So I still have to say this. Just be careful. Be careful. So the future of ESG investing. What does the future look like for ESG investing? Let's end here. We're going to talk about enhanced regulation. So there's going to be increasing standardization of ESG disclosures through SEC rules and international standards like ISSB will improve data consistency and reliability. Again, as the newer generation starts to take their seat at the table, the seat of corporate boards of governance, the seat at political seats, you'll see a change. There's also going to be a technological advance. AI and big data analytics will provide more sophisticated ESG insights beyond traditional ratings, including real-time monitoring of company behavior. So AI will affect ESG as well, right? Mainstream integration. ESG factors will become fundamentally components of investment analysis rather than a separate consideration. Right now, it's kind of like financial consideration and ESG. They will find a way eventually to kind of merge those into one. So as their material financial impacts become increasingly evident, you'll see them kind of like, merge together. So successful ESG investing will require balancing ethical considerations with financial objectives. and navigating this space from a regulatory standpoint and also from a competitive landscape standpoint. And firms that adopt most effectively will gain an advantage in client acquisition as well as retention over time. Because again, not to butcher the point, but we can make fun of the youth all we want to, but the youth will eventually become in seats of power. So as we start to head towards retirement and we sit back, we want to make sure we are prepared to have our chicken still make more chicken. I said it to say ESG is something we should be aware of. I'm not saying that you should go all the way down the ESG rabbit hole and say forget everything else. I'm only going to invest in environmentally friendly companies. I'm just saying pay attention to what it means. With that being said, that is what I have on ESG investing. Let's get to the comments and see what's popping there.
So Ann said he couldn't help it. What up, Cedric?
Cedric, how are you, sir?
All right. Yeah, they thought they just didn't care. Okay. We got that. All right. Anybody have any questions about ESG? Go ahead and throw it in the chat.
Me and Kamari had not a debate, but like a difference of opinion about this dude the other day.
What dude?
George Soros.
Oh.
Because you were talking about how you feel like he, you remember that you were saying that you think that he's done a good job of putting his money behind, whatever he puts. And I said you feel that way because I think you probably lean a little bit politically the way he leans.
I would say the way he leaned is more pro-black than many others.
And my opinion is they all evil.
Okay.
But again,
I mean, but that's yeah.
No, I'll put that out there because it's funny because sometimes if I'm critical of one person, the response is always a whataboutism. Well, what about this person? I'm like, well, I hate him too. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so the whataboutisms never work on me. It's like when I make critiques of capitalism, people are like, well, is socialism better? Well, I didn't bring up socialism. I hate that too. I hate everything.
So then what's the point then? Like, I mean, I guess for me, right, where is the direction? Where should we move? How should we operate? Just saying capitalism sucks and not giving an alternative to me is a waste of time.
No, I say we need to work, use some of our brilliant minds that we have in our community and figure out something completely new.
No, I don't think there is anything new.
Okay.
You got to generate new people. That's the problem. Corey says it. People suck. That's the problem with all these isms.
My grandmother told me nothing beats a failure but a try. So we got to try. We can't just say no. We got to try something.
All right. Ann says, great presentation. Soros certified evil.
Thank you. I was telling Kamar, I said, so when he damn near sunk an entire economy in an entire country, that wasn't evil.
He took the trade. They did that on their own. He just took the trade. England he took the trade on England. They created those policies to make the pound sterling be defunct.
Is it evil to live backwards?
I wouldn't say that's living backwards, but
okay.
Go ahead, get your rap bars off.
No, I mean that's a line from my man Loaded Luck.
I know.
Why is fine is mortifying, man. I'm just trying to swing by like a girl's curious, but I digress. I just did my monthly watch of Loaded Luck Soul Funk Flex. So I make sure once a month I watch that, Black Thought, and Fred the Godson. Like once a month, I just watch all three of those just to keep my palate cleansed.
Fred was special.
That's how I keep my palate cleansed. Once a month, I watch those three Funk Flex freestyles. I cleanse my palate, but I digress. All right, y'all. So that's ESG. Corey, you got any thoughts on ESG?
No, nothing that you didn't say, man. These companies, there's no such thing as ESG. So,
all right, here we go. That's your opinion, then. There we go. That's what it is. All right, y'all, man. Listen, we appreciate y'all. For those in the village, man, check out the village. We got some stuff dropping. We'll be here this week, man. Wednesday, possibly Friday. Friday is always. Wednesday be up in the air sometimes, man, because the week be weekend, man. We be working, man. And we did get on this Wednesday, didn't we? We got on for a short period of time this Wednesday.
We actually supposed to go to an event today, but
who's gonna be one today?
We'll talk about that offline.
Damn, I must have missed that, dog.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna do yet.
Damn. Oops.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm gonna do yet.
Yo, I'm at the age right now, y'all. If it's not on my calendar, it don't exist. Straight up. Like I got so much going on.
And don't let a nap get in the way. And it's not on the calendar.
Yeah, and it's not on the calendar. I am totally I forgot about whatever you talk about. I forgot because I still don't know what you're talking about. But here's the thing, though. I'm telling you, I'm at that age. If it's not on my calendar, it doesn't exist. You know, as Meek said, I used to pray for times like this. When you got a bunch of stuff going on, and then when you got a bunch of stuff going on, you be like, "What the hell is wrong with me? Why I got all this stuff going on?" You know. But you know, it's a good problem to have. You know, I always say, man, you woke up this morning, so life is good, y'all. We'll be back next week. Stay tuned. Join the village by going to blackwealthrebels.com. Support our sponsor. Get supplement. And you know, any questions, concerns, comments, please, you know, shoot us an email, blackwealthrebels@gmail.com. And we'll see you guys sometime this week. Remember, Friday's the Bitcoin giveaways. Next Sunday we'll have another class on something.
And we will see y'all next Wednesday. But y'all be great.
Peace. Black Queens forever.